Good morning, folks. I will get to a health video today, or in this video, but first I wanted to give you an update as to all the things that I got done yesterday. I have updated the matrix multiplier to do complex numbers in multiplication, the dot product, and the addition and subtraction. I still, and also, you know, the determinant and the root and all that, fixing that, because it's not easy getting a spreadsheet to obey when you have text, right? But luckily there are functions to remove or create products, etc. with complex numbers. So there's that. And then I also created the Giants of Electromagnetism map. You'll be interested to know that a woman has been added to the map, Rosalind Franklin, who did major work on the X-ray. She didn't discover the X-rays, but she did major work on the X-ray diffraction. And this is well known. I mean, it wasn't like she was some lab assistant. It was definitely her lead research, and it led to the discovery of DNA. So her work on the X-rays has been added. She's a Giants of Electromagnetism. If you would like to add people who aren't, you know, Tesla and Edison, who are already added, go to the Mists of Time group, and you'll be able to find the map there, and there's also the submission form. All I ask is that you put in, you know, where they were born, for the born, right, the lived is the years, and that you include the major part of their work with electromagnetism, and if there's room, because sometimes it won't let you put too much stuff, you put the quotes, and then in the link section, you know, put the citations of the pages that you took the copy from. And I'm more than welcome people to, if you think of somebody that I haven't thought of, to add to that map. And of course the map is based on where they're born, not necessarily where they worked, but still. You know, it's really interesting, both Feynman and Gell-Mann were born in New York City. One was born in Queens and one was born in Manhattan. And they did end up working together, Caltech, I think. So that's a really interesting thing, and they were totally contemporaries. They didn't like each other too much. At first they liked each other, then they didn't like each other too much. You know, Gell-Mann says it was Feynman's ego. But, you know, usually it's egotistical people that say that kind of thing anyways. So today I'll be working on the plasma glyphs paper and I've got a whole bunch of other to-dos. Check out the new books I got. I did listen to this entire audiobook. You can get it on Audible. It is computer voice, but it's like computer voice that's supposed to sound like a man, and it's kind of rough going. But anyhow, it's an interesting book. But I also got a number of his other works. They're thin. So the author is Donald Yates. So you got Cherokee Origin Narrative. You've got the Old Souls in a New World, and Cherokee Clans. All of these are part of a whole series that he has. Apparently he's a descendant of Cherokee, so it has Cherokee language information in it. That's why I felt that it was worth saying. I don't really like a lot of lineage information, especially if people are making up their lineage. But the fact that it's linguistic information is the part that I found the most interesting. Right, so health. What do we want to talk about today? I think I would like to talk about, let's talk about the muscles. A lot of people have this idea or understanding of muscles and tendons and ligaments, less ligaments, but mostly muscles and tendons, as being sort of like rubber bands. All right, and this is analogous to people thinking that nerves are like copper wires. These are kind of model ideas, but they're not actually correct. When you look at the actual anatomy of the muscle, it is basically a series of teeth. It looks like more like a pair of saws or you know, a caterpillar with its legs, and actually they are machines. These machines, hold on, let me fix yours. These machines rely on two compounds, actin and myosin. Of course, mya meaning MYE meaning muscle, right? So if you have myopathy, then you have muscle pain, whereas pathy means pain. So actin and myosin work together based on minerals in the same way that your nerves work on minerals, and then of course your whole body needs blood sugar in order to be powered, to get the ATP. But the actual pumping of ions, that is electricity but in ion form, is how they really do what they do. In the case of nerves, it's an action potential being sent down through the myelin sheath along the dendrites and then to a synapse, and the synapse sprays out neurotransmitters, which causes the next one to fire as well. But with muscles, the actin and myosin actually bond temporarily at sites on the muscle chain and cause the muscle fiber to contract. Now, if you want a good book that shows a great diagram, of course you can Google image search for muscles. But a great book is by DK, and it's called The Human Body, and it's all these 3D images. I prefer the older edition of the book. I've got both. They're great for kids, but they're great for adults too. I mean, it's solid information. You could teach a non-doctor anatomy class, like a basic anatomy class. You could totally teach using this book because they use the actual Latin names. And anyhow, the muscle fiber will twitch closed. Now, once it's twitched closed, it's going to stay closed until it receives the opposite compound to go the other way. So your muscles aren't really relaxing. They're actually contracting in the opposite direction. Now, the nerve is relaxing. Okay, so your nerve rate is maintaining at like a constant ping. Let's say, for the simplicity, it's going at 10, right? 10 hertz. It's just like boom, 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 boom. Of course, that'd be 10 times a second. Now, when you want to contract a muscle, now that nerve rate starts sending really fast, and that helps to stimulate the action of the muscle. But it needs the compounds and it needs the minerals, particularly sodium, calcium, potassium, and chlorine. It needs all of those in order to do its contraction and to do its release. Now, the release is instigated by the contraction of an opposite muscle. So the classic example is the biceps and triceps. So when I squeeze the bicep here, the tricep down below relaxes. And by relaxes, of course, it ratchets in the opposite direction. Now, true relaxation is had. Everybody's seen the pictures of drunk people who are, bent over stools backwards. They look like they're in yoga poses and stuff. That's true relaxation, right? There's no consciousness happening in that body. And so while they're not conscious, the nerve rate is at a very minimal level, and the muscles are actually truly relaxed. That's why even very, very drunk people will loose their bowels and bladder. Why? Because the muscles interiorly are completely relaxed. This is actually what people are looking for when they're getting drunk. The experience of getting drunk is kind of an interesting experience. And humans always are lusting for new experience. But the medication action, the reason why the body likes it despite it being so toxic and so brutal afterwards, is that you achieve full relaxation. And that's a very hard thing to do. Even with yoga or qigong, it's a very hard thing to do because your mind is concentrated so much of your waking hours. So when the muscle contracts one way, it creates byproduct waste. One of those is lactic acid. The lactic acid can then build up in the surrounding tissue and can damage the muscle fibers. So it's important after a workout that you do some type of other workout like qigong or a walk or stretching to help flush that acid out. If you have a really strong workout because you haven't worked out in a long time and you end up with a bunch of acid, do not wait 2, 3, 4 days for it to go away, get out there and work it, because you need to flush. You need the physical fibers to be washed and flushed by the lymphatics and just the fluid movements of the body, right? What we call fluid metabolism in the body. You need that to cleanse the muscle. And it's also good for the nerves too, to bring the nerve rate back up again. And if you have torn a muscle, of course it's going to grow back pretty fast, but it's important that you give it a couple, 3 weeks in order to have a pretty good fabric, or matrix is what they call it, of linking back, but then start working it slowly to build it back up again. All right, they are like rubber bands, and like say your Achilles, when it snaps, boom. I mean, it's gonna pop like a rubber band. But unlike a rubber band, they can grow back together. But when they grow back together, they won't go straight. They'll go mangly like this. So then you got to work them out until the body straightens everything out, and that could take years. Depends on the muscle damage, the level of muscle damage that you've received. Now, you don't technically grow new muscle, by the way. Your muscle cells that you're born with, other than repair, you're going to end up with that many muscle cells. What you do is you get more efficient muscle contraction, and you can get hypertrophy of the muscle. Now, getting big muscles and having hypertrophy, actually at some point, that makes the muscle weak. And it also, of course, shortens the muscle. In Chinese medicine, this is not considered ideal. In an ideal world, the bigger the muscle is, the more we want to work on getting it lengthened, because otherwise it can get short. And when it shortens, it'll pull on the tendon. And if it pulls on the tendon, it's going to pull on the bones and the joints. And on top of that, that's going to make the ligaments work hard to keep the joints stable. So now there comes your bicipital inflammation. It could be, lateral epicondylitis, or what you call the, what's that one? That's the tennis elbow. And it's always interesting to remember that tennis elbow is this way, and as I always think of tennis going this way, but it's this way. But the golfer's elbow is on the inside. But both of them are inflammation due almost every time. I'd say 9.9 out of 10 times that people come in the clinic, they have muscles that won't relax in their flexors or their extensors and in their arms, particularly the shoulder area, and then that can go all the way up to the neck. That means something's bothering them, and that's why that's contracting. Of course, it could just be use. It could be golfing or playing tennis too much, or it could be playing at just what they were used to, but their body's getting older. And so you have to maintain these muscles. They are fluid sacs. They are not just chunks of meat. By the time we eat meat, it's been cooked, all that blood has come out, but if you actually look at the raw meat, it is saturated with blood, right? That it needs to be fluid, it needs to be worked from time to time to get out all these toxins, because after the metabolic process, the stuff that's in there is actually quite toxic, and eventually goes down to through the metabolism becoming urea, and that's why you have to get rid of urine all the time. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but your kidneys are flushing, in an average adult male, 180 liters of blood every day are being pumped through the kidneys, and a female is usually about 165 liters. So your kidneys are working very hard to keep your body clean and flushed. There's a book that I can recommend for you if you're interested in your interior health. It's called Blood Never Lies. And a man who actually he scoped the blood in a number of people and saw, basically the theory is this: the cleaner the blood, the healthier the body. If the blood is not demonstrating that there's an ease of hydration and an ease of flushing out these oxidants and urea and acids that can damage the body, damage the telomerase, then basically the person is aging early and going to die. Now, in Chinese science and Chinese medicine, we believe that breathing is a huge part of keeping that blood flow up, keeping that blood healthy. But his emphasis in his book is all about supplementation and having enough compounds. I think it's both. I think you need to have the things that for the machines to work, and you need to have something to power the machines. So you need both in order for them to work. And of course, you need plenty of good water. So that's the message ultimately for today. Work on your hydration. And if you are having spastic tonicity in your muscles, check your minerals. You might be having too many minerals in your diet, leading to muscles cramping and seizing up. If it's not the minerals, then it could also be thought energy stuck, because these muscles are capacitors. They will hold all sorts of information. They can hold it in the gut, they can hold it in the abs, traps, the uterus. All sorts of muscles will store information in the nerves, especially to keep it away from your brain, because your brain doesn't want to think about all that stuff. Whatever's stressing you out that you don't want to think about, it's got to go somewhere else. It's going to get stored mostly in the neck and the shoulders, but it can be stored almost anywhere, including the colon. All right, anyways, I'm rambling, so hope you have a good weekend. Enjoy this video, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you all next week.